welcome to Connected Conversations for Creatives, a place where creatives like you can learn, grow, and connect. I'm your host, Jennifer Carr. Have you ever thought about what makes someone wise? Well, today we're exploring an intriguing question. How does creativity contribute to wisdom? It's easy to see wisdom as a deep philosophical concept, but what if we could break it down? What if we could understand how our creative sparks are actually building blocks of wisdom? Think of wisdom not as a lofty, unreachable trait, but as a collection of qualities that includes creativity. It's there when you find a new solution at work or when you navigate complex emotions in your relationships. It's about using what you know in smart, sometimes surprising ways to make life just a little bit smoother. So reflect on this. How has your creativity helped you in unexpected ways? Do you think understanding the link between creativity and wisdom could help us all live better? Well, I'm excited to introduce today's guest, Dr. Laura Gabayan. Laura is not only a physician and a researcher, but a pioneer in defining wisdom through her groundbreaking work. In her book, Common Wisdom, Laura identifies creativity as one of the essential elements of wisdom, based on interviews with who she considered 60 wise individuals. She's here to share how these elements interconnect and why creativity is a cornerstone of wise living. I'm excited to get into the science behind wisdom and creativity and maybe discover how understanding these concepts can enrich our lives. I'm even more excited that she's joining me for this conversation. So, Laura, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let's start really simple and just kind of let us get to know you and what inspired you to pursue a career in medicine.
So I'm from the Middle East, and women really don't do that there. You know, the idea is, why become a physician? Why not marry a physician, right? And so I also feel like it's important to control your environment. So I pursued emergency medicine for that reason, because I wanted to know if someone, God forbid, drops dead somewhere or has chest pain or whatever they have in the remote wherever, I know how to deal with it. So I went to medical school, and then I did a residency in emergency medicine. That's kind of where you learn what kind of field you're in. And then I did a fellowship, and the fellowship is just additional training and in research. And that's where I learned to become the researcher that I am.
Okay, so I will just say I love research. Like, grad school was my happy place because there was a lot of reading, researching, learning, and writing. Like, you put all those things together, and I am a happy little duck. And you've spent quite a bit of your career in research, but going from emergency medicine to research, that's kind of a big jump from like all of the adrenaline rush to now I'm figuring stuff out on my own, and it's kind of solitary. So what is it about research that pulled you in?
So that's why emergency medicine research are kind of like not related in that, you're there seeing patients in the ER. It is the adrenaline rush of the hours or what you're doing versus the days are off, you do research. And most people in emergency medicine don't do that. They don't have that love. And I pursued it and it works out great because I feel like it's given me an avenue to kind of create knowledge and also talk to the world and tell them what I find.
I love that. And I will say that I get really excited when I learn something new. I immediately have to go tell somebody. So I think we're a lot alike in that realm, because what's the good of having knowledge if you're not going to share it with people?
Agree.
Yeah. Okay, so why wisdom? And I know all of us want to be considered wise, right? Because otherwise you're a fool. Like, that's kind of the spectrum there. And so I guess first we need to define wisdom in the context of your research, but also, like, why was wisdom the subject that took you to the point of doing research and writing a book about it?
So I have had my own medical problems, and in a way, being a physician kind of limits your spectrum. And so I felt like the only people who kind of looked outside the box were the wise. And that's where I was like, wait a second. And so what does that mean? And then I looked into it, and I'm like, wait, all these major religions talk about it, wisdom. And we also have a lot of famous people saying, oh, this is wisdom, but we really don't know. So then I was like, well, let me study more about it and do my own project. And I did.
You may as well. Nobody else is doing it, so you may as well. So, for your research, how did you define wisdom? What constitutes wisdom?
So, interestingly, I based it on the scientific literature, and initially was giving good advice and making good decisions. And then I had that definition, and we created a website, but most people, I mean, the way I got to the 60 people was telling everyone and anyone, do you know someone wise? And the people who said, oh, I know someone wise, everyone, even of the wise, we asked them if they know someone wise. No one used the definition, and no one kind of looked at it that way. It was, oh yeah, I went to college with this person and they were wise. Or, oh yeah, and they weren't friends necessarily. They definitely were not friends. There were people they knew that, oh yeah, that person is wise. And that was it.
Huh. So it was really hard to find a common definition that said, this is wisdom.
Well, I think we did initially, but no one used it. And and what I found in literature was, a book or a questionnaire or any type of test does not determine who's wise. It's other people. And so when we did ask people who is wise, they nominated other people. And that's how it grew.
I gotcha. Okay, so, and according to your research, and this is where my podcast comes in, creativity plays a role in wisdom. So what did you discover about creativity and its impact on wisdom?
So I will tell you the 8 elements that I found, and creativity is one of them. And they're in order of most prevalent, but it's also clearly an important part of what we found. So, and I'll tell you in order. So resilience, kindness, positivity, spirituality, humility, tolerance, creativity, and curiosity. And I feel like creativity and curiosity are the foundation for wisdom. And also, there are things that we all have. I'm sure you have met kids. Kids are very creative. They think outside the box. They turn like a bed sheet into a tent or fort, right? Kids are creative. So, and curious. They always say why to everything. So those 2 elements, I feel like, are the foundation.
I agree. And do you think that, and maybe you kind of found this in your research, but do you think that wisdom is something that can be cultivated, or it's like a natural born thing?
Well, I definitely, that was the goal of my work. And I definitely feel like when you look at the 8, you think to yourself, I'm really good at this, but I'm not good at that. And you build on that. Like, for example, having been from the Middle East, kindness was viewed as like a trait that you're kind of dumb to be kind. You're a pushover, you're dumb. It was definitely not something I pursued, but my husband is very kind. So I think it's important to kind of look at the each of the traits and be like, oh, I'm really good at this. Or spirituality, for example. We may not have it growing up, but we may become more spiritual with time. So I think it's important.
I do too. I think that, and I also think there's a little self-actualization that goes into, developing your wisdom, because you do have to realize who you are as a person and what you might be lacking and that kind of thing. And so, but I'm with you. I think that wisdom is something, especially as I've gotten older, like creativity for me is something that I've always been creative. But when I started cultivating it, my creativity levels went up, up, and up. And so, yeah, I think that you have to know yourself. And if it's something you want, pursue it.
Well, also, as you said, practice is helpful. And I think with all of the components, it's practicing. Mm-hmm. It's saying, oh, okay, I'm not a positive person, but let me practice thinking positively today, one time today, 2 times tomorrow, whatever. Just practice.
Yes, exactly. So did you find that creativity's influence on wisdom, or just wisdom in general, really changed with age, or were younger and older affected differently?
So it's funny because our research, only the people I talked to had to be between the age of 50 to 79. And the reason I stuck to that is because I did look at the literature beforehand, and they found that wisdom had an inverse U relationship with age, and that the very old, so in their 80s plus, kind of lose their wisdom because they're not that flexible. So that's where the age range came from: 50s, 60s, and 70s.
That's interesting. And I get that, because I think a lot of those things, again, if you are going to practice, you have to have experience. And in order to have experience, you kind of have to have life. And so I can see how getting to those points, because I know for a fact at 40, I am definitely wiser than I was at 20. And I'm definitely at that point was wiser than I was at 15, and so I can see that my wisdom has increased, and I hope to continue, because I still make choices that probably wouldn't be considered wise.
Well, I think that was, someone wrote me and they said, after reading your book, I realized, while I'm intelligent, I'm not wise. Mm-hmm. And I think the idea is not that. The idea of the book is to be like, oh, I'm good at this and I'm not good at that, and I can build on this. So, as with everything, it's kind of viewing as a tool, as a mentor.
Oh, I like that. I like thinking about it like that. Did you find that there was influence based on the different? And I know your research took place in North America. Did you have a variation of cultures, and did that influence it at all?
So initially, I was looking at different cultures because the literature, and when I say literature, there was some published literature in sociology, psychology, and geriatric journals. And to do any research project, you have to read about what's out there. And I did for years. And COVID worked because COVID allowed me to just read about them.
Yeah.
And so the research shows that wisdom is not associated with race, gender, or political affiliation, but it is associated with culture. So the Asian culture versus, the Middle Eastern or wherever. But I was not able to grasp that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we stuck to North America, and it worked because that's kind of its own culture.
That's true. And I was just, I'm thinking that even if everybody was, in the same state in North America, you could still get a variation of responses. Like, yeah.
True.
Yeah. So how has this research influenced your own views, or even maybe your practice in creativity?
I think it's just made me realize, oh, this is important. This is something I need to fixate more on, kind of focus more on. Has it changed my life? It has, because I've thought about it more. I've thought about these 8 elements more. Some of them you can't control, and some you can, like resilience. I think it's, fortunately or unfortunately, a lot of the people did go through a lot of life issues. Mm-hmm. And you can't control that. If death in the family, a death of this, you can't control that, but it's your response to it that you can. And so I feel like having these 8 elements has made me, oh yeah, that's really important. Oh yeah, let me focus on that type thing.
I love that. Like, it brings a mindfulness to it. Like, you can see it on an everyday kind of basis that, oh, I'm not being very generous right now, or not very curious today. I need to maybe up that part of my...
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, I like that. Do you have a creative outlet other than research and writing?
So it's funny because I thought about it. I'm like, the creativity that I instill probably doesn't have a name. I like to try different things. So if I see a random fruit or I see a random whatever, I like to try it. So food wise, I definitely do. Or places or people, I just feel like it's important to kind of get to know everyone because of that, and be creative about it, and think, oh, that'll teach me something. Regardless of whether you like it or not, it will teach you something.
Isn't that the truth? Like, I think that is one thing that holds people back, is the fear of trying something new. But oh my goodness, the rewards on the flip side, even learning about yourself, I didn't like that too much. Like, that's a great experience to learn from and can fuel your creativity.
True.
Yeah.
Very true.
So, what kind of practical advice might you give someone looking to enhance their wisdom through creativity? Like, is there,
Well, I have to say the idea of wisdom is not a sexy topic. And nowadays with the internet, social media, that's the last thing people care to enhance. So one thing I say to people is wisdom is like a code word for having meaning and depth and fulfillment in your life. And that's what I kind of felt with everyone I interviewed. And it was a sense of, oh, it'll be okay. It's not a big deal. Nothing is a big deal. It'll be okay. And that sense of, oh, enjoy the little things. And they had that sense of meaning. So that's my advice, is focus more. That's where the idea of mindfulness comes in. And also, like, view this as something that will just improve your life.
Oh, yeah, you are never going to be sorry to work on increasing your wisdom. Like, that is something you'll never regret. And you might benefit from it sooner than later. Was there a story that maybe when you had an encounter in your research, was there one that just stuck with you that kind of inspired you? Because I can imagine that was a very inspiring process too.
I don't know if there was one. I felt like every single person had something to share. And I felt like every single person had learned from whatever it was they encountered. And whether they liked it or not, it kind of definitely led in them learning, developing, and more. And so the idea of what doesn't make you or what doesn't break you makes you was so true.
I bet you probably came out of that. I know for me, like when I would just cry over research papers because I was tired and there were too many pages left to write and the material was hard, that kind of thing. When I was working on just papers, like, I know that it was frustrating, but I can't imagine going into something like that and leaving not inspired. Like, you probably had the most religious experience with your research, and I don't know what that's like.
I think for me, having come from science and medicine and having come from a field that totally does not believe in spirituality, does not. Yeah. Because if you can't see it, you can't measure it, and it doesn't exist, type thing. For me, it was very interesting, or it was a shock for me to see how important that was in their lives. Now, were they all spiritual? No. It was the fourth element, but it was definitely something, it was acknowledging that there was something bigger.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I love that. And, when I say a religious experience, I really just mean that it probably spoke to your soul. I know it would speak to mine. Like, just the thought of hanging out with, when I do get to talk to older creatives when they come on the show. I had one last season. I think she was 80. She was close to 80. And just the knowledge and the wisdom that she dropped that day, we were talking about the importance of communication and how it's becoming a lost art. And I could have sat and listened to her talk all day long. And so just to have that experience on a repeated basis, I would probably be floating by the time I was done.
I agree. And I have to say, not everyone would enjoy that.
Yeah.
And I feel like I think that's why I'm like, just take what you can handle and take what's important to you.
Oh, for sure. Yes. No, it is definitely not for everybody. And it wouldn't have been for me 10 years ago, right? I wouldn't have had the patience to sit still and listen to story after story. So, which, that comes with age and experience as well, because one day I'm going to be that 80-year-old woman that I hope somebody listens when I talk.
True. True.
Yeah.
But you know what? Not everyone who is older is wise.
True.
And it's important to realize that it's a journey.
Yes.
And it's okay.
Oh, yes. And I mean, I've met some wise 30-year-olds who, maybe they've had more life experience under their belt, God love them, than I ever did at 30. But, you can learn from somebody who is 3, 30, or 60, and in between. So, yeah, absolutely.
I think that's something that I definitely noticed is people were so open to learning from others. And they were just more open to realizing, hey, and that's why tolerance was one as well, is that person, there's no one person that knows it all. There's no one person who has expertise in X. There's no one person that has more money. There's no one person who has. So be humble and be open to learning from others.
Oh, I think that is one of the best. And it's funny. And whether it's, through knowledge exchange, whether it's from observation, I know for a fact that when I was 15, my younger sister learned a lot of lessons on how not to behave because I chose at 15 to behave a certain way. And so she was spared a lot of heartache and punishment because she chose not to behave the way I did. There's wisdom in learning from other people's actions or their words or, whatever.
Or their inaction.
This is true too. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. That is an excellent point. So tell us about your book. Is this a book that anyone without a science background could pick up and enjoy learning from?
So I particularly made it very easy to read and very short. And the reason for that is, first of all, I'm a researcher. So what someone may say in a paragraph, I say in like 4 words. I have to, or else, people don't pay attention. And also I felt like it's such an important concept. I want everyone to benefit from it. So I remember my husband read it and he's like, wow, this is so simple. I'm like, yeah, that's the goal, is that I want everyone to kind of get that from it. So it's available on Amazon in all 4 modalities. So you have the hardcover, softcover, ebook, and audiobook. And that's why I would recommend people go to get it.
Oh, fantastic. And is there a way that listeners can connect with you personally, whether social media, your website?
I have a website, and so that would be on lauragabayan.com.
Okay, great. And I will put that in the show notes so that all they have to do is go click on it and they can find you. They'll have a link to your book. And Laura, I have one big final question for you. It's the one that is going to change the world, or at least whoever's listening. Are you ready for it?
Yes.
Okay. What is one piece of advice or encouragement you want listeners to walk away with if they hear nothing else?
My piece of advice is what surprised me the most. Of the 8 elements, I think I mentioned that kindness surprised me the most. And my piece of advice is, it's very easy to be kind. Very easy not to be mean and upset and whatever. But just being kind to someone can make such a lasting impression. So my piece of advice would be kind in whatever you do.
I love that. Be kind and work on getting wiser because of it. Like, it will make you a wiser person when you are kind. That's great advice. And it's one that we take for granted sometimes because
we totally do.
Yes.
Well, I took it because I didn't appreciate it because I didn't grow up with a kind mother. And as I said, I come from the Middle East. Kindness was not something that I grew up, appreciating, but the impact of kindness is so far-fetched.
Yes, it can be quite profound, and the little things, I'll just share this story. I was at Target 2 weeks ago, maybe, and I had just gotten my hair cut, and I had somebody ask me, why did you cut your hair? And it was someone close to me, and it was someone that I thought, why was that the first reaction you had to me? And so I'm at Target, I go to the Starbucks, and the girl at the counter said, oh my gosh, your hair looks so good. And I'm like, I don't know you. Who paid you to say that? Like, why are you being nice about my hair? But I will tell you, that's going to stick with me. She didn't have to say it. She chose to say it. And that was just a kindness that, how hard was it? It wasn't hard at all. And it meant so much to me. So kindness is definitely, people do not take advantage of the ability.
Right.
Yes.
I agree.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I love a good, quick and easy and to the point conversation because it's one of those things that people can listen to and digest and go listen to it again and pull even something else out of it. So thanks for being here and having this conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me again.
Absolutely.